Hello learners, in today's video we'll continue the marathon session. As of now till today we have completed until Buddhism. Now we will see the other religion or the other part of the ancient history marathon, which would be about Jainism. So we'll just have a brief, introduction about it. Firstly, we know that this particular religion is promoting non-violence and aestheticism. It is not in the case with Buddhism. And they say about that one life should be in such a way or aligned in such a way that one should crave or one should aim for pursuit of the spiritual liberation. And not only that, not just it's in the spiritual context, but this particular religion has also contributed in our Indian culture, literature, art forms, and also some certain kind of ideologies and all. So there's a vast kind of influence about this particular religion towards the land of our country. So this also lies very important for our prelims and also our mains. For mains, you need to know the philosophical aspects, which kind of leaders are got inspired or influenced that kind of an aspect. And coming to prelims, there are key facts you need to understand and analyze. Those facts has to be understood in an analytical approach. So everything we'll try to cover so that it can help us for our prelims 2025. So firstly, we'll understand what is the historical context of this before Mahavira or Jain Mahavira and after and during the Mughal times and during the British times. Firstly, we will see before the Mahavirian era. This is considered way back, like more than Buddhism, it is considered as an ancient religion because the first Tirthankar, Mahavira and all came after our 5th or 6th century BC. But this particular religion goes way back. So it is considered one of the ancient religions of the land. And for some facts are like the first Tirthankar is called as Rishabhadeva or also called as Adinatha. And he was the one, or his particular name was being mentioned in Rig Veda and some of the Hindu Puranas. And also he was the one who has recognized the social order and agriculture and trade during his particular time. And the 23rd Tirthankar, see, you need not to understand or memorize all the Tirthankars, but the major important persons, or in not just in this case, but in any case, the major important personalities has to be remembered. So coming to Jainism, there was total of 24 Tirthankars. So Rishabhdeva was considered as the first, and the third is called as Parshvanatha, and he believed to live around somewhere between 8th to 9th century BC. And he was the one who gave 4 ethical vows. The 5th one was added by none other than Mahavira. We will see. What are the major 4 things? We'll see Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya and Apagriha. We'll try to understand this when we are doing in the further slides about the philosophical aspects. So you just remember that the 23rd Tirthankar was the one who gave the 4 ethical vows, and 5th one was being added by Mahavira Jain. And he is considered immediate predecessor to Mahavira. Now, Mahavira and 6th century. Before Mahavira, that was the thing. Now what is about this particular Jain, who is also the 24th Tirthankar. Coming to firstly, his full name is called as Vardhaman Mahavira, and he was born in 599 BC. This kind of dates will differ in different texts, but generally considered as this particular date and in a place called Kundagrama, which is in present day Bihar. And he was a child of father King Siddhartha and Queen Trishala, and they belong to Ikshwaku dynasty. And we'll have a brief understanding. So this is about his birth, and at the age of 30, Mahavira renounced his royal life so that he can seek or he can gain enlightenment or seek the knowledge which is the spiritual truth at the age of 30. And after 12 years, he have attained enlightenment. In Jainism perspective, it is called Kevala Jnana. Means it's an only science. Means it's the ultimate truth. There is no beyond that. Ultimate enlightenment at the age of 42. And coming to teachings, Mahavira propagated a reformed kind of a version of the previous Jainism philosophies. And also he added 5th vow, which is Brahmacharya. This was not there before. And as I told in the Buddhism class that we never say these personalities associating to the word death or something. So they'll call it as he attained nirvana, which is also called as moksha in our Hindu scripts, at Pavapuri place, which is in Bihar in 527 BC. And what was happening in the 6th century, what was the exact scenario when this all was happening is, there was a rise of heterodox sects like Jainism and Buddhism. So to tackle the orthodoxy of the Vedic civilization or the Vedic part, and to question the caste systems and elaborate rituals, they were denying this. That is why they are called as heterodox sects. And period of urbanization was there in the Gangetic plains, which were promoting new philosophies. See, they'll say that philosophy rise when you are sitting on the armchair, but not when you are plowing the land. So that is why it was flourishing. Urbanization was there. People had time to think and certain kind. So that is why the heterodox kind of religions or sects got emerged, so that they can counter the orthodoxy or the end or a very strict spectrum of the society. And Jainism gained royal patronage from rulers like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru of Magadha in 6th century BC. Next, what happened afterwards? What are the developments once Mahavira has introduced certain kind of reforms and certain kind of things in the religion? What happened later on? There in somewhere between 300 to 200 BCE, it is considered that this particular religion got divided into two sects mainly, which is called as Digambara and Shvetambara. Digambara is also called sky clad because they believed in ultimate extremism. Like they do not put clothing on themselves. They feel like we should not even harm in any way possible to any other soul. So it's kind of a little extreme. And coming to Shvetambara text, they adorn themselves into a white cloth, or they are also called as white clad because they permit wearing white robes and some kind of relief other than the people who were following Digambara. So there were the two sects after Mahavira. Then what was the reason for this? Because of the monastic practices and the doctrinal interpretation. Definitely the follower all he wants to do is to give knowledge, pass on the knowledge so that they can lead their life. But ultimately what will happen, they'll put photo of that particular follower and they'll try to fight even the follower is not in the contemporary. In the same way it has happened, and that is why it has led to the schism or the separation. And how did Jainism spread across after Mahavira? In Mauryan period, somewhere between 322 to 185, the great emperor Chandragupta Maurya, he converted into Jainism. And also not just he converted, but also he migrated to Shravan Belgola, where he undertook Sallekana, which is fasting unto death. Very extreme. And also Emperor Ashoka's grandson, Samprati, he supposed Jainism extensively. See, I'm telling you, from Buddhism and Jainism part, from past 10 years, if you see, from 2015 to 2024, there are total of 13 questions together. They might ask who are the leaders promoting or who are the contemporaries, that kind of question. We have also started the series where we are analyzing the past 10-year questions. We'll do this particular analysis in there. But as of now, remember that even these kind of points like important for us to know during the prelims exam. And Jainism spread to South India as well. Which of the regions after Mahavira is in South India or Western India, which is part like Gujarat and Rajasthan, and in Central India during the Mauryan period and the post-Mauryan period. Today, if we see in the South India, in the Karnataka region, this particular religion is followed extensively. Now, what happened during medieval India? After Mahavira's attaining nirvana, some kind of developments has happened, but that just didn't stop over there, but also went on to the medieval period. What exactly had happened during the Guptan period? Some kind of a decline was there due to the revival of Hinduism. We know Guptan art and literature very grandly talking about Hinduism and also separately about Shaivism, Vaishnavism and all. So there is some kind of a decline seen, and important Jain texts like Tattva Artha Sutra were composed during this particular time. It's important that in literature it is playing a role, but as of a whole religion, people, population, was slightly, we can see that there was a decline. And then Rashtrakuta and Chalukya dynasties, what happened? It flourished under the patronage of South Indian rulers. That is why this particular patronage is, we can see the presence of Jainism today, especially in Karnataka region. And major temples like Ellora caves and Shravanbelgola were constructed during the medieval times, and especially during Rashtrakutas and the Chalukya dynasty. And medieval decline, Jainism faced competition from Bhakti movement and rising of Hinduism and Islam. We know that 600, what happened? So, rise of Hinduism, other religions. Now, the heterodox religions were facing certain kind of decline. Now, what happened later on, after medieval period, what happened during the British period? It experienced a revival because we know that they were trying to counter two particular religions. So, we could see that Jainism was experiencing certain kind of a revival, and there were a lot of efforts made lots of efforts put by the Jain scholars already, so that they can also revive their particular religion. And especially a great Jain scholar named Veer Chand Raghavji Gandhi, who was belonging to this particular period, he represented the first Parliament of World Religions in 1893. He was a very great Jain scholar. And also there were other leaders who were working to protect the sacred text and heritage, like Palitana temples and Dilwara temples. It's very important. These particular two are important in the art and culture part. So, we understood that to counter certain kind of extremities, the heterodox religions has come, especially Buddhism and Jainism. Later on, particularly in Jainism, Mahavira was the one who was trying to reform that. After Mahavira is gone, some kind of a patronage was happening. Later in medieval India, because of rise of the traditional religions, these religions were coming down, but again in the British rule, they were rising. So we can see the graph. This is how you will analyze, and that is how you will remember the chronology. Now, we'll learn about, that was the historical context, what exactly was happening, where and how they were rising and falling. But now we will importantly analyze what are the core teachings and philosophy of this particular religion. First, importantly, they talk about three ratnas or three jewels, which is right faith, right knowledge and right conduct. And they are represented in swastik, and these three things, like these 3 points, are called as the three ratnas, which is called in the technical term as Samyak Darshana. Means you have to have a proper faith, and which should be very righteous. And Samyak Jnana means right knowledge. And Samyak Charitra means right conduct. Only when you have right faith, you will seek right knowledge, and that is how you will do the right conduct. Just remember in this sentence-wise format. The next teaching would be, I told you the 5 vows. The 4 vows was been given by the 23rd Tirthankar, and the 5th one was given by Mahavira. What are those 4? First of all, it's Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya and Aparigraha. These were given by the 23rd Tirthankar. They say that Ahimsa is nothing but non-violence. You need not to harm anyone, any living being, not just the humans, but any creature which is on the earth. And Satya, truth. Always speak the truth. Asteya means not to steal. Do not steal no matter what the circumstance faces you. Aparigraha means non-possession or not being so greedy for the material world. You need to detach yourself from the material aspects. That is how you will seek your nirvana or moksha. And the 5th one, which was been added by the 24th Tirthankar, is Brahmacharya, which is celibacy, so that you can have a overall control over your desires. So these are the 5 vows, or also called Panch Mahavratas. Next philosophy is Anekantvada. This particular doctrine talks about the multiplicity. This particular thing is very important in today's time, because the truth, whatever the truth is relative, we need to understand that, and it is multifaceted. We become sometimes so stubborn that we do not try to be in other shoes and understand. That's very wrong. That is how it is leading to hatred, non-violence, secular communalism, regionalism, all such kind of things. That this particular doctrine was being spoken recently as well in the newspaper, telling that it's high time we revive such kind of things in present scenario. And the other doctrine is Syadavada, which is talking about the conditional prediction. Each statement is true under certain conditions. Whatever we speak, there is some condition, and the truth is relative and multifaceted. We need not to be so stubbornly sticking that our way is highway kind. Then what are they talking about? Karma and moksha is, karma is binds the soul to the cycle of the birth and rebirth, and the moksha is achieved by purging the karma or breaking whatever the karma through aesthetic practices. They are saying that karma is your karma will define your soul, and that soul will revolve in your life and death kind of a circle. To break this particular thing, you need to attain moksha or liberation or enlightenment by practicing aesthetic life. So this is their opinion, and these are the 5 different principles, most important principle, and you need to know how to apply these principles in life as well as in your answers. Next, what are the Tirthankar concepts? Anyone like spiritual teachers of this particular religions are called as Tirthankars, and there are total of 24 Tirthankars, and the last one was, the 24th one was Mahavira Jain. The important Tirthankars I have said, the first one is called as Rishabdeva or Adinatha, and the 23rd Tirthankar was Parshavnatha, and the last one or the 24th one Tirthankar is called as our Mahavira Jain. So now this particular text and art and architecture will be dealt separately and exclusively in art and architectural part. Now we'll just have a brief. The Agamas concept is there. These are the compilations, or they are compiled in Ardha Magadhi Prakrit. These are the Jain texts which are called as Agamas, and what do they contain is Mahavira's teaching. What is the language? This is a language. So whenever they say which of the following is related to Jainism, they'll ask you different things and put Agamas means it's about Agamas. I think it was a previous year question as well. Then sects and their text. Shwetambaras, which I've told you, or the white clads, they have some kind of a text called Kalpa Sutra, which is the biography of Mahavira. Coming to Digambaras, the text is called Sarva Siddhanta or Pravachanasara, which is by Acharya Kunda. It's very important text which will be dealt in the art and architectural part. They have a mix of rich Prakrit and Sanskrit literature. We should also know when was Prakrit being added in the chronology and when did the text started writing in Sanskrit as well. That analysis we will do in art and architecture, such as these 2 texts. Now, coming to art and architecture, we do have famous temples like Dilwara temple and Bahubali statue, which is in Shravanbelgola. And coming to philosophy and ethics, were very important. They gave 5 principles, major philosophies, and also that influenced Mahatma Gandhi in the India's freedom movement as well. And coming to economy and trade, we know because of they do not follow non-violence and do kind of have some kind of restrictions. We can see a lot of Jains into the prominent trade kind of things, financiers or traders, and this led to the prosperity and urbanization. Now, what is the relevance in the modern times? Very important to analyze this kind of things for our mains. Coming to environmental conservation, this particular principles which are emphasizing about vegetarianism and sustainable living. Sustainable living, we very well know whenever topics comes of climate change, how grandly we talk about this particular thing. So these are very relevant in today's time, and their commitment to non-violence are aligning with the global environmental ethics. We live and we should let live. That is an underlining concept beyond this. So that is how it is helping in the today's contemporary as well. And interfaith harmony. They say that doctrine of Anekantvada, which is promoting tolerance, acceptance, and there is no one true reality, which is giving or offering the diverse viewpoints. Don't you think that it will promote a lot of peace and harmony among the society? And social impact, we do have concepts like non-possession, which are advocating against materialism. So these are the contemporary relevance which are important for mains. That is how you align in a multi-dimensional way. Now, we'll compare Buddhism with Jainism. This kind of comparison is also important. See, the real founder is considered Mahavira because he tried to kind of reform and structure it properly. But some people also believe the first Tirthankar is, gave birth to Jainism. Let us not get into the controversies. And Buddhism, we do know that Gautam Buddha. And the core philosophies I have said that Anekantvada, non-violence, atheism and all. Here they talk about the middle path and the Four Noble Truths and many more. Coming to goal, ultimately liberation, which is moksha, nirvana. Both are same but different words. And how do you attain moksha is very important to be analyzed. And coming to the concept of karma, in Jainism, karma is material and it binds the soul. Here, karma will lead to suffering. To break that suffering, you need to follow the Eightfold Path and Four Noble Truths. Scriptures are called as agamas. Here they are called as Tripitaka. So this kind of comparison lie very important for us to do because they might confuse us in the statement-based questions by just interlinking or changing the statements. So that is why this lies important. Next, some key facts about Jainism. What is the symbol of Jainism? A hand with a wheel. Like ahimsa with the doctrine of non-violence. It's very important. Next, we did have Jain councils. The Vallabhi council finalized the Jain agamas. There were 2 councils. And that particular, also not just Buddhism or Hinduism got UNESCO World Heritage Sites, but Palitana temple, which is in Gujarat, which belonged to the Jains, also got the UNESCO tagline. And Ellora caves, the Jain caves alongside with Buddhist and Hindu structures. Coming to prominent personalities, I have said Chandragupta Maurya, who has converted and he died to fast until death. And also Mahatma Gandhi ji and the Jain, scholars of British India, they all lie in the prominent personalities who got inspired from Jainism. Now, what are the key contributions? Obviously, I told you that because they do not follow non-violence, all such kind of principles, they are more into trade and economy, all such. So, they emphasize more on trade and commerce because of the non-violence. They chose that profession because of their imbibed principles of the religion. And prominent Jain traders contributed to the urbanization of cities like Ujjain, Ahmedabad, Mysore, and also many parts of Karnataka actually. Okay, next, what is the influence on Indian philosophy? See, concepts like ahimsa influence the rulers like Ashoka. Ashoka got influenced because of Buddhism, but concepts like ahimsa made the rulers get down to the ground and understand that non-violence is not the ultimate solution, but they chose a peaceful path. And doctrine of Anekantvada inspired modern Indian legal and ethical thinking as well. They'll ask you in ethics as well, how Jainism philosophies can be imbibed in the contemporary times or the disturbed times. So they helped in so much so that we can also reform our way of thinking following these particular philosophies given by the heterodox religions. So these are the brief analysis of Jainism. In the previous video we did Buddhism. Likewise, we'll continue the marathon session completing the ancient history. Thank you.